Hello, and welcome to another episode of Big Moves, Bigger Conversations. Guys, today's episode is on confidence. Back in 2022, when I blew up on TikTok, I had so many girlies asking me, Sasha, where do you get your confidence from? Sasha, can you do a session on building your confidence? And so I said, why not put it on YouTube? And honestly, I could have a number of sessions on this. I'm actually going to ask other women to come in and share like how they define their or how they built up their confidence, whether it's around their weight loss journey or their beauty standards or like whatever. But like, I'm going to give you some of the core foundations that really helps me in owning the fact that or the reason you guys see me as confidence. I'm going to give you the tips. I'm going to give you what I do regularly so that you can start to implement those practices and hopefully come out a more confident version of yourself. And I would say at a baseline, when I was younger, this was probably when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I remember learning at a very early age that adults lie. It is kind of weird, but like I remember there was a situation at school where I had gotten in trouble. And I just remember that the teacher, when she was retelling the story, how much she fabricated the story. And there was just such a difference between what had actually happened versus what she was telling my dad. And when my dad then came back to me, he was all about accountability, right? He wanted me to own what I had done. And he said, you're going to go apologize and like, you're not going to do this anymore. And I remember like thinking in that moment, you too are out of your rabbit ass mind. If you believe this lady, like it was so silly what she had essentially said I did. And I mean, really what I can articulate now is she wanted to ensure that my dad punished me, right? And so if she would have told the story as it is, if she would have told the story, it would have been dumb. And so instead of telling the story as it was, she exaggerated some of the points. And I don't remember verbatim like what happened or what I did, but I just remember I was literally like, I don't know if I was like 7 or 8. And I just remember that being a core memory. And once I realized that adults lie, oh yeah, you really won't get too much past me. And I just carried that over. And so into like my entire life, like I've always stood on, I don't lie. Now I could be wrong about something, fine. You may not like my perspective. You may not like how I went about it, but I'm not about to lie. Like this is the version or this is the fact pattern. And like, I don't mind telling you what he or she said in the situation. And I'll tell you what I said, but I'm not about to lie. And so I feel like my confidence was instilled in me early on in knowing that sometimes, Sasha, in this world, you only going to have yourself. I mean, that's probably like a lot of trauma that I need to unpack because think about it. I was a child in having this realization. But honestly, once I realized that, like I said, adults lie, I was willing to double down on myself each time. And I also had the ability coming up of like, I learned how to trigger people, specifically adults. I remember in school where I would see something that the teacher wasn't really good at or something that, he or she was sensitive about. And I kind of like turned it when they pissed me off. Here, listen, I'm here to be truthful about the situation. I'm not asking you to agree or disagree, but I'm just telling you, I would learn to do that at a very early age. One of my more memorable moments was, in fact, when I was in high school and we had a coach. And the coach at the time was, I mean, he was a little heavier set, younger guy, but his self-esteem wavered based on what you said. And he ended up being our varsity volleyball coach. Well, this man, we were on our way to a game or we were on our way back from a game or to the game. I can't remember, either back or to the game. But me and my friend, and if she watched this, she should drop it in the comments. I'm really trying to be mindful of like not putting other people's names and stuff. But when she watches this, if you're comfortable, go ahead and shout out this story to validate it. But he had irritated me about something. And so I essentially dug in. I mean, some would deem this bullying. But again, I dug in. And so I said, whatever his name is, I'll say Michael. Michael drove the bus. Michael drive the bus. And this man, mind you, this is high school. So I'm probably this was probably junior year, so 16 or 17. But when I tell you, this man has such a um, reaction. I mean, this was a grown man, and he was about to cry because I was saying he drove a bus. This man is educated. He is our teacher. I can't remember what he did for the school itself, but I remember he was our volleyball coach. And I mean, I was just doing Michael drives the bus. Michael drives, and I got the whole bus to say it. And this man was enraged. And I just remember, like, that's the story that I'm giving y'all. But like, there's been other instances where I have literally had the ability to just kind of find it, turn it, and wait for the consequences. I think that's another thing. I've never been afraid of consequences. Like I've just never been afraid of like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen on the other. And you might be asking, well, what does that have to do with confidence? I'm confident in my ability to change whatever's about to happen. Very strange. Very strange. So I would say, again, I never dealt with this idea of being a people pleaser. That was not something that was in my DNA. So can't relate there. So like if you have those things that you're struggling with, and that's why I like, pull in other people to share their experiences, but like I've never been a people pleaser. I've always been really confident in just standing on my own, being my own best friend. I do think like I have 3 other siblings, 1 brother and 2 sisters, and they're older than me. I'm the youngest of 4. And so maybe that has something to do with my ability to I learned how to play by myself, right? I learned how to entertain myself. But in all honesty, I learned how to bet on myself. I learned that not everybody is going to view things in the same way you do. And you can listen and be understanding and be open to other perspectives. But like, girl, you only got you. Clock that. And so when you say like Sasha, now in my 30s, why are you able to be? It's been practice. Another thing I do, you might find it strange. I can have a full-fledged conversation with myself. Facts, understanding, agreement with myself. As strange as that might sound, but like I have the ability to, and I'm also, not to discount the work, but I'm also super reflective. So anytime something happens, I'm the first person to be like, Sasha, you could have did this, you should have did this, or I like when you did this. Like I'm big on big upping myself, but also being very critical about how I'm showing up or how I'm being seen or what I need to do differently. And that's why when people give me feedback, even in relationships, and I've had someone say this to me, one of my previous partners, they said to me, they're like, you don't always need to jump, like you don't always need to, like they'll tell me something and then I'm like responding and they're like, you don't always need to respond. Well, that's true for you. It might take you a few minutes to understand. It might take you days to be able to reflect. I'm very clear on what you're saying. Thank you so much. Right? And in that moment, I'll either agree and fully be, even more reflective and say like, yeah, I'm going to own that and I'll move in that direction, or I don't care. And like, again, in not being a people pleaser, I have the ability to say, okay, you said it. Okay. But I don't care. And it's me saying I don't care really doesn't mean that I don't care about the situation. It means I'm not putting more effort into this. And so when it comes to confidence, you have to be willing to double down on yourself. You have to be willing to say, okay, perhaps I could have did things differently. I own the fact that I will do different things, and I trust myself to be able to pivot and or do said thing. Like, we're not going to make this a thing. And another thing that goes back to confidence, being able to understand that everything doesn't have to be, you don't need to magnify everything, right? Like, yes, it happened. Yes, it didn't go as according to plan, or yeah, that shit blew up. But at the end of the day, I'm still here. Like, God willing, I'll get another day and I'll pivot or I'll move forward. It's like your mentality has to be, I'm okay with this version of myself, right, wrong, or indifferent. And even if I need to work on things, I'm very clear, or I'll listen or be observant to the things that I need to work on, but I still like myself. Confidence has everything to do with your ability to like yourself and who you are. And I'm willing to die on that. You are not there. I have never met a person who is confident but doesn't like themselves. Like, I don't know that those two can exist and it hold true. I love myself. I am literally my best friend. Even in high school, I remember it was a girl that I was really close with, and we would often, we do things throughout the week or whatever. And even though she never said, she struggled with her self-confidence, I could tell. And hers was from just how she showed up. And it was because in certain rooms, I could identify that like she would shrink herself. And when she would drink heavy, like when she would drink heavy, another version of her would show out. And the other version was very big and it was almost angry. And I used to think, girl, if you just be yourself, you wouldn't have these big emotions. Like big emotions come from the fact that like at some point you're not really showing up. Like when people are like, "Oh, I'm an angry drunk," you're angry because you're hiding it regularly. Like like, why are you an angry drunk? Right? What feelings are you pushing down so that when you get drunk, now all of a sudden you have courage? I don't have that. If I didn't like you before the drink, I'm not gonna like you doing it. But this girl, like I used to say to her, I sleep well. Why? Every morning I get up, I say, Sasha, I love you. I'm proud of you, and I can't wait to see the next version or iteration of you. Period. And when I go to sleep at night, as long as I can stare at you, I know people who still to this day cannot look at themselves in the mirror. And I'm not talking about with a full face. I'm saying like go in the bathroom, stare at yourself, and be able to speak life into yourself. Maybe that's your homework. Because I could do it. And I do it often. When it came to my job loss and people were like, oh my God, what are you going to do? Da, da, da. Girl, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm also confident enough to know that there's going to be something else on the other side of this. And it's not going to be like, it's not going to, this is not going to be the defining moment of my life, right? This isn't going to be the thing that I look back and say, that is where I went wrong. Why? Because I believe in myself. I wholeheartedly believe in my abilities and the fact that I am growing, developing myself, and wanting more for myself. And sometimes it takes me being pushed to actually get to that next point. I've been getting pushed a lot. Like, I actually just had this joke with my friend. I said, I always get nervous during times of transition because I always feel like I want God to, I'm tired of God whispering, I want him to yell at me. I want it to be so crystal clear. But that's me, not being honest about the work that I still need to do. And there is work. And so I recognize that like if anyone shares their life stories and within their life stories there's no challenges, they're not being authentic in their storytelling. Like no one lives on earth not going through anything. And so once you humanize the fact that we are all dealing with challenges, some might be big, some might be small, but when you recognize the fact that like we're all going through it and we're showing up in whatever capacity, like there's a level of humility that like you will get through. And so when I look back at like college, really, if I were to share my entire story, people would question like, girl, you really did beat the odds. And I've continuously beat the odds. I've been beating the odds since really I've been 18 years old because my life trajectory has nothing to do with what I manifested. It has everything to do with the environments I've been in, the folks that I've been around, and the ability for me to listen to God and for his coverage. Like I am so blessed because of external factors. I mean, obviously, I'm showing up and I'm being myself, but I wholeheartedly believe that my experiences to date have all been impacted by the individuals that I've been around. I have a really solid, good, supportive, professional, personal, family, like relationships. And so I just feel like if you put yourself out there and show up authentically, meaning you're not overly consumed with how you're going to be viewed by others, but that you're going to be comfortable with the version of you, life will change. I don't know. I mean, everybody I've met will tell you, like anybody that's ever interacted with me will tell you, like, I've never met nobody like Sasha. Why? Because I'm not looking to mimic anybody else. And it's because I truly live in my authentic self. In fact, my good girlfriend yesterday said, Sasha, no one's ever, we were talking about something and she goes, I said that just like Sasha said, no one ever. Like the way in which you formulate things or the way that you come up with things. Even a guy that I was dating, we were total like polar opposites. And he used to be like, it's the way you say things. Now he wasn't giving me a compliment. But even in that relationship, like I was just like, okay, you don't like it. You don't like it. I'm not, why don't you find something that you like and that you can tolerate? Because that ain't me. You ready? Right? Like, we are very different. And if you have a perspective that the way in which you function is the only way that's right, we're not going to get along, and that's okay. And I think confidence shows up in so many different aspects of your life that when you're not confident, it peeks through. And there's so many opportunities in this world for that will kind of, pick at you, that I want you to figure out what are some of the techniques and or things that I can do to strengthen the fact that when I go outside, I'm going into the world. And that's another thing. When I do not feel whole, right? Because there are days where I'm like, "Ugh, I don't have it in me," I stay in. Because you can't show up in the world. Like, if you can't go out in the world and expect somebody else to rebuild you, you have to go out into the world built. Okay. So on those days where I don't feel, that's not 100%. I'm talking like 80%. I don't go out in the world because sometimes it only takes that extra thing to then shift you completely. And in those moments, that's when you're not going to be proud of yourself. When you're like, I knew I shouldn't have did it. I knew I should have, I knew I should have came out. I didn't want this situation to take place, but it took place because, like, I make sure when I step out, I'm in good spirits. When I'm drinking and stuff, I make sure I'm in good spirits. I make sure that I'm functioning or turning up in a way that I am happy with who I am, regardless of who's around me. And your confidence will ultimately show, like, and this may be a little touchy, but like, your confidence in yourself will also be reflective based on, like, how do I want to say this? Your confidence will also reflect the people around you. Will be reflected in the people around you. I hope I'm saying that right. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is your network and the people around you will also be an indicator of what you think of yourself. That's what I was trying to say. And that's why I'm really confident and comfortable saying I love my circle. You almost have to. I remember we were doing a girls talk on one of our Sunday chats, and they were like, I couldn't imagine being friends with somebody who wasn't confident. Confident in the sense of not everything is perfect, right? Everybody has challenges with dealing with self-esteem and things of that nature, but we're not sensitive. And you can't be sensitive because it's sensitive in the fact of, like, no one can say anything to you without your feelings getting hurt. One of the reasons I enjoy hanging out with the boys is because it's funny. And sometimes I'm the butt of the joke. And guess what? I'm okay with it. Why? Because I have bad days, like when y'all go back to episode 3 or 4 and I was in that ponytail. But look at today. Look how beautiful my view is today. And that's what it's all about. It's about what's next, what's on the other side, that nothing is forever. And so when we think about confidence, again, my takeaways from this episode is figure out what serves you, figure out how you can be the best version of yourself, and figure out those practices, right? For some people, it's meditation. For me, it's talking to myself in the mirror. It's me talking to myself in general, having really full conversations and say, well, did I say that, or did I mean that? Or I should have said that, and, whatever. But it's finding something that helps you to re-baseline. And so I hope this episode was helpful. Excited about upcoming episodes. And remember, if you have episode ideas that you want me to speak on and drop some insight from, again, my perspective, happy to do so. Until the next time, talk soon.